Welcome to the Mystic Access Podcast, where the magic is in learning. Hi everyone, welcome to the Mystic Access Podcast for March 31st, 2026. He's Chris.
She's Kim.
And today we're going to tell you a story. But first, we have an important news about a very important product to us. And that's kind of where the story will come from later, but we have to start with the news.
Right. So in May of 2015, we launched to the world the VectorStream Next Generation audio tutorial.
And at that point, the next generation was the second stream. So stream 2.
Or new generation or whatever it was called.
Right.
I forget.
It was a long time ago, y'all.
And the news is that the stream tutorial has now been placed on our free downloads page for anybody that wants it. You know, it's full of information, lots of information. And one thing that we did was we replaced the Audible section because the Audible section is outdated. And to make it easier on ourselves, we decided to import the Stream 3 portion of the Stream Audible section into the Stream 2 tutorial. So while it's using the Stream 3, everything still should be the same.
So for those who don't know, tell them why Stream 2 is now in free downloads. We're giving it to you guys. You deserve it, but here's why.
Well, Humanware, because the Stream 2 is a product that's been out for the past 13 years, I believe, Humanware is ending its support. So in order for those that have the Stream 2, we decided to give that tutorial away.
That way you still have a really powerful way to find out information easily. You can listen to the demos and you'll still know what's going on. You can't obviously call and ask questions to Humanware support reps about Stream 2s anymore as of...
I believe it's May.
So you'll still have a good reference to follow. Of course, if you're somebody who prefers to read manuals, if you have those or can find those online somewhere, you can certainly use them. But we wanted to make sure you had a comprehensive audio resource as well if you want to follow along with your own Stream 2.
So you want to go to mysticaccessdownloads.com and you should find it in the Humanware products category.
So this leads to our topic for today. We're going to tell you a little story.
So what's tomorrow?
I don't know. What is it?
April 1st. So what is April 1st? Why do we care about April 1st? Well, it's April Fool's Day.
It is April Fool's Day. And for some reason, Chris decided that April Fool's Day was the perfect day to launch Mystic Access as a company.
So Mystic Access has been around since April 1st, 2013.
And some of you may go, wait, but didn't we get the stream tutorial in 2015? Yes, you did. But Mystic was a thing before that.
It was. It was something I put up. Wasn't sure what to do with it. Grabbed the name, grabbed the domain.
Created a couple products for it too.
Right. But you and I came up with the name.
Yes, we did.
So that was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. We've been dating for almost a year at that time. And we started talking about it, and he said, this is this thing I want to do. So we started talking about it and throwing names around, and we eventually came up with the Mystic part. And the Access just kind of came with it.
Afterwards.
Yeah. The Access made sense.
Well, we're trying to figure out what the heck does that even mean as a thing, but it's Mystic Access, and that's where it came from. Now, let's go back a little bit. Sometime in mid-2014, there became a new host on the Mystic Access podcast.
Yep, that was me. And if you listen to some of those old podcasts, you can still access them and dig them up. We sound so young. But we started out, the first episode that I co-hosted with Chris was an Android tablet, right? An Android tablet of some kind?
The Samsung, I forget what it is, Samsung Tab S or something like that. It was running KitKat.
He got a tablet. I got a tablet right after that because I literally remember buying it on July 4th and getting it off eBay and getting it a few days later. So we both have tablet demos during that time. And then we also did a Bluetooth speakers podcast.
You know what's kind of cool though?
What?
We still have the tablets. At least I do.
We do.
I can put my hand on that tablet.
I can't. Mine's in North Carolina, but I know exactly where it is.
I know exactly where mine is.
I bet they're not very fast at this point in the game.
I bet they're not. And I bet if you turn them on, I don't know what they would do. The ones associated with a Google account, that's not even a thing anymore. So that'd be interesting to turn it on. Maybe hopefully you can factory reset it or something.
I loved that tablet so much. I had so much fun with it. I played with it for years. That was my first real major Android experience. I had a phone at the time, but I never really liked my phone. It was a ZTE Valet, and I kind of hated it. I mean, it did the job, I guess, but I didn't love it. So my tablet was my real love when it came to an Android device.
What phone did you have before that ZTE?
Oh, gosh. It was I loved the phone, but it was running Gingerbread. What was the phone? Do you remember?
No, it wasn't. It was running
Jelly Bean? Oh, was it Ice Cream or Jelly Bean?
Jelly Bean came
first.
before KitKat.
Well, JK, yes. Oh, I bet it was ice cream sandwich and not jelly bean. IJK.
Yeah.
So it was probably running ice cream. What was that phone?
I don't know. But anyway.
I loved it. And he's like, you can't use that. It's not accessible. And I loved it so much better than the ZTE if it would have had actual good software on it that I could have used.
It's not as good as it was, or could have been, or Jolly Bean or KitKat would later become.
Oh, no. It was barely usable. I really had to send it back because it really wasn't workable.
Right.
Unfortunately, because I loved it.
So you had that phone, and we did these tutorials or demonstrations, rather, on these KitKat tablets. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if they were running KitKat at the time, even.
Maybe Jelly Bean.
Huh.
I don't know.
Let's find out. Ziggy, when was Android KitKat released?
Android KitKat, October 31st.
Jelly Bean.
No. Thank you. Because it said 2013. So
Yeah, and those podcasts were in July.
Of 2014.
Oh.
So, yeah, so they were running KitKat. I thought they were, but I wasn't sure. I know they would eventually get...
Lollipop.
They got Lollipop, and then they got the one after that.
I don't know if mine ever got Marshmallow.
Marshmallow. I know mine did.
I don't remember if mine did, actually. They were both Samsung tablets, though. They were awesome. We loved them.
And then we did a podcast in January 2015 that was the SIRI killer.
Ah, yes. Except it wasn't.
Except
Ivy.
It wasn't. I was Ivy.
Ivy. If anyone wants to hear something funny, you can listen to our Ivy podcast. And it's spelled IVEE, I believe.
I believe so, too.
So you won't find it under the woman's name, IVY.
Right. But
it was funny.
Funny because it was a clock.
Clock radio.
It wasn't even a radio, I don't think.
Sure, it had an FM radio in it.
Do you remember that? Because
yeah.
I don't remember.
I do, because I could never get any channels to come in on it because my
mine
reception
didn't.
was terrible.
Mine didn't.
Really?
Mine was the quote SIRI killer because mine connected to the internet.
See, mine was older than yours. Mine did not.
And you were supposed to be able to do all this fancy stuff that you could do with SIRI. And yes, I'm spelling the name for a reason because I don't want mine to go off.
No.
And it was kind of interesting because you connect that to the internet. It relied on a website that's no longer available. So this hardware, if anybody still has it, at least my clock, because it relied so much on the internet, is no longer a thing. Wouldn't even work anymore these days.
I think mine finally got donated. You got it for me for a present, and I loved it. The best thing about it was its sleep sounds, because they would loop, and at the end of their loop, if it was like a 30-minute loop or a 45-minute loop or an hour loop, it would end. So it would loop, and then it would end.
Right.
It was so beautiful. And it also had really cool clock alarms. They were so fun, and I loved the voice on mine. Yours was NeoSpeech Julie. I remember that.
Yes.
Mine was some British voice, and she was fantastic. She was a great voice.
Yes.
But the technology really wasn't there.
Right.
But the voice was amazing. I loved it, and I loved the music and stuff. They were really trying to do a good thing with it. I just don't think the technology was there yet.
But then we fast forward a couple of months.
Yeah.
To April 15th or around that time. When I got this nice brand new speaker.
Invitation only.
Invitation only, called the Amazon ECHO.
Right.
The Echo. And what did you do?
I said, why exactly do you want this when all you can do is really ask about the weather and listen to some music? At the time, I think it was just Amazon Music. Was it TuneIn then too?
I think it was TuneIn as well. Was
TuneIn the thing already at that point? It's really funny to listen to that first podcast.
Yes. So we had this podcast go out, and it was about the, quote, Amazon Alexa or Echo product. And that was by invitation only. You couldn't get one of those unless you were invited to, and you had to buy it. It wasn't like it was free. So you had to buy this thing, but you bought it before everybody else got access to it. I remember asking a friend that I know had Prime at the time if she could buy me one, and I would pay her back because I wanted a second one, because I kind of saw the potential of it. And it was basically, by the time I asked her to do it, it was open to the public so anybody could buy it. So I just bought my own second one.
Did I buy mine or did you buy it for me?
I bought it for you because we're going to get there.
We'll get there eventually.
Right. So in early 2015, in April of 2015.
March.
Was it March?
I think it was March.
It had to have been March. I had asked you if you wanted to do a audio tutorial on the Victor Reader Stream 2. or the new generation Victory Stream product.
And I kind of giggled and said, isn't there already material and audio? Why would I want to do a documentation on something that already has documentation from the company? How could we possibly do this better? And then I listened to the documentation and said, we can do this better.
So
no offense to the guy who did it.
Right. So we had purchased a couple streams and made it happen.
Now, you got to understand something. This was a shoestring thing. We even had a podcast, I think, one time about how to start things on a shoestring. Oh, I think it was in a class that we taught, actually. It's probably still available to you guys. So we literally bought a couple mixers, some cables. We had no idea what we were doing. You knew more what you were doing than I was, by far. But you had enough faith in me to say, hey, you can figure out how to do this and record it, and we'll make it happen. And then I can kind of critique you and tell you what to do different. Because I wasn't in the industry, okay? I knew maybe 3 blind people. I went to public school. I had grown up in a poor county. I did not have all the fancy schmancy stuff, nor did I have access to it. And when I started getting it, the first thing I got was a Braille Note Classic that was purchased for me by Voc Rehab when I was going into college. It was a brand new product, and it was my freshman year. So you can all guess my age. And that was my first product. So everything else I got, like my first gen stream, I bought. So I think the only things I'd gotten in school, I got like a nice tactile marked metal protractor. Some of you probably remember those. I tried to block it out. I did have a Braille ruler. I had some abacuses.
Talking calculator,
that kind of stuff. Obviously Perkins Braille writer. But
Braille and Speak.
Oh yeah, and Braille and Speak. Yes, did have a Braille and Speak. Loved that thing. Other than that, I really didn't have access to like any of the ones with Braille displays, anything like that until the Classic came out. So I'm pretty much self-taught. When I learned stuff, I would pick up a manual like Olga's tape for the 640, right? Many of you remember that. And I would listen to that, and that's how I learned stuff. So I understood the value of the documentation. It was something that Chris and I started talking about at some point. Hey, do you remember blah, blah, blah? Now, there's an age difference between us, but it's not such a big age difference that we didn't use a lot of the same manuals and know a lot of the same stuff, in terms of not necessarily assistive technology, but the technology we grew up with. But I think one of the powerful things for me was knowing that I really didn't need anybody to help me figure this out if I had good enough documentation, which was good. So when he asked me about it, I thought, what could we do to make this better? And on listening to what was out there, I thought, well, one thing is, and again, no offense meant by this, but we could make this more engaging. We could make this more friendly for people to kind of know that they're not the only ones in this boat. And other people have learned this stuff before. Here's some ways that you could learn it in a way that really makes sense. And we thought in order to do this, you need to start out with real foundational concepts. Like, why the heck do I care? Because you know how sometimes, some of you may know how this is, like you get equipment. Maybe your Voc Rehab says you need X and gives you equipment. And you're thinking, why do I want this? Why is this such a big deal? So maybe you need a little convincing as to why this might be a big deal. And I'm not going to say you must have this product, but I want you to know what it does and how you might use it to enhance your life or work or play or all the above. So that's kind of what we wanted to do in the Stream 2 documentation that we created to make it accessible, make it interesting, and do it in such a way where if you already knew some of the beginning stuff, maybe you could listen as a refresher, or you could bounce straight through, because this is why we daisy things, to stuff that is more helpful to you. Someone wrote in a review recently, though, and I want to bring it up here because I think it's important. Sometimes we all have different things that we know about products. And maybe there's something in the introductory stuff that I say, I'm just taking Stream 2 as an example, that maybe you never knew. And as a result of that, maybe you can learn something from even a section that you didn't think was going to have any value to you. So somebody kind of mentioned something like that in a review recently, and I appreciated it because, we all learn different things. And we learn in different ways. So you can kind of be inspired even when you think you might know something by information that you hear. So I appreciated that. I thought that was really nice. And it's true. It's happened to me too. Somebody might say something in such a way where you're like, oh, I never understood that concept before. And now it makes more sense. So how are you feeling about the creation of this Stream 2 documentation? I mean, I had never done anything like this before. I had done plenty of teaching, but never in this area.
Well, we got the equipment. We set out to record.
That's a good description because we had so many issues recording that thing.
Yes.
Because I did not know what I was doing.
And we had a little beta testing team that got to preview it and give us suggestions on how to make it better, even.
Yes.
And it basically was released in the middle of May of 2015 to the public.
It was launched with a Tech Talk presentation.
It was, which you can still find.
Yes, it's still available.
We might even put it in free downloads. We'll see.
Oh no. Do we have to?
It'd be kind of fun.
It is available though. You can still find it. Our very first Tech Talk presentation. I know a lot of people at the time weren't willing to necessarily purchase it because we had priced it in a way that we thought was value for money.
It was.
It was. And people who bought it really helped us to get Mystic off the ground. We will always appreciate those of you who really took the time in those early months, especially in that first year, to check out what we did and see if it was worthwhile to you, because it was you people who kind of got us started and made us confident enough to think, well, we might actually have something here.
I remember one customer purchased it at that price because they were mildly curious. In the table of contents, it says, how do I use my Bluetooth speaker with a Stream 2 that does not support Bluetooth?
It was literally like 5 minutes of information.
And they were happy with it.
Yes. That's what I mean about you never know what you'll learn sometimes. And we're very careful to include all the main pieces of information that you're going to learn in documentation on the website so that you guys will have an understanding of what's actually up there. So you can read about it and find out what's what before you purchase.
Which brings us to our meeting with Humanware.
Ah, yes. This was quite interesting.
So we had a meeting with Humanware as the customers that had purchased that tutorial in the beginning liked, obviously, what they were getting.
And told Humanware about it.
Brought it to the attention of Humanware, which then started a collaboration with Humanware where we did a tutorial for the brand new Braille No Touch
Yes, in 2016.
in 2016.
So that was how we really became known to the public, was through this Humanware Braille No Touch tutorial. Greg Stilson was the product manager at the time that the Touch tutorial was released. And so we worked closely with Greg on the creation of that. And again, we had a really great tester team that we worked with to make sure it was going to be a really good product. And a lot of us were also doing beta testing at the time for it. And so because of that, we could talk to people and say, how do we approach this, or this? And I tell you what, without that beta group that we were working with, it would not have been the documentation that it was, because we threw things around and ideas, and they were essential in helping to make, especially those earlier sections, as good as they were.
Let me talk a second about collaborations.
Yes.
And how they happen.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know.
For sure.
And sometimes a customer will go to a company and say, take a look at these people. And I can think of two examples where that happened. One, the collaboration with National Braille Press.
Absolutely.
And two, the collaboration with AgileBits and 1Password.
Yes.
Those were two situations where you as the customer assisted in getting the word out to these companies. Now, when we did the tutorial for 1Password, they were very, very generous in including a link for anybody that purchased that tutorial at the time. I believe it was 6 months of free 1Password service, and that was very, very generous.
Very. And it gave you a chance to try it out and find out how it worked for you. Because again, a lot of this stuff is really subjective.
Right. So things come and go. 1Password tutorial, because it was version 7, when they released version 8, it was no longer accessible, which they have since rectified.
But it's still different enough
that we could not sell that tutorial.
Yeah, we can't put that one back out in the limelight. And let's talk about that part for a second, okay? This is important to understand as well. The problem, audio is great, okay? It's wonderful. But here's the problem with it. When stuff gets out of date, it's not as easy as going into, say, a book, and I've spoken with author friends about this, and changing one section's worth of text and taking 2 or 3 days or a week and polishing it up and changing it to reflect what's new and different. With audio, it's going to take probably 3 weeks or something, depending on how much you have to do and how intense the changes are to go in and do it, especially in the audio that we do, because we demonstrate everything. So a lot of times when things are sunset from us, it takes a lot of time that we might not necessarily have to go in and revamp them, which is why so many of our products have been sunset and have not returned in any way, shape, or form. Let's take Google as a good example of that. Oh, I should have said it. The G word as a good example of that. The G assistant.
Right, which is trying to make its presence known. Is a good example of the app has changed dramatically.
And not for the better.
And actually, it's much for the better. It is most definitely better than it once was.
You talking about the assistant or the app?
The app.
Okay, the app, yes, I'd agree with you on that.
The app is a lot better, more accessible than it once was.
But the assistant itself is not.
It's getting better.
You think so? You can't play any games with it anymore.
You can't play
any
games with it, but you get a lot of information. You get a lot of useful information.
You do, but it would be very difficult to turn that back into audio documentation when you can't do any of the entertainment stuff.
Right.
And do we even do the app in the original documentation?
Yes.
That's been a long time. So that's an example how much that would have to change. It would literally have to have began from scratch again, completely re-outlined, re-recorded, re-edited, reproduced, and put back up. That takes a lot of time. Many of you know that Mystic is no longer either of our full-time gigs. So it makes planning and doing things for Mystic a little bit more of a chore. Well, actually a lot more of a chore than it used to be. There are times when it's easier and times when it's not. And so Mystic does not always get the love that it needs and deserves just because of scheduling. Because a lot of the projects that we do for Mystic are longer in nature and they take up a lot of time. And some of them require a lot of input from both of us to make them work. Because that's kind of what makes Mystic Mystic.
Yeah, and the thing of this story is to talk about how it began and, where it is now and possibly future, but we don't know what the future holds.
Right, exactly. It's been a weird few months. Let's put it that way. And, you have to think about things. So we're not saying Mystic's going anywhere.
Matter of fact, we have a couple of projects that we can't talk about.
We do. We can't discuss them right now, but we do have some things that are definitely in the pipeline that you will hear about, but you won't hear about them yet because we can't talk about them. But the thing I think that's important about Mystic's beginnings is that it kind of came out of a little dream, and we were very determined to come out of the gate looking like we know what we're doing and we're going to look like experts, even if we are doing this for the first time. This is kind of our first big foray into doing this type of work in the assistive technology markets. You had, of course, been doing stuff for years between Sendero and, working in this city in Buffalo and all the things you had done previously. But in terms of actually creating the documentation in an audio format, this was the first really big project that we did. And I think it was very important that we set ourselves apart by coming out with an A+ product out of the gate. And I think that's what got us taken seriously by the bigger companies as they were finding out about us. Because it's always been very important to us.
I remember in the very, very beginning, I think you had mentioned earlier that we were kind of judged. Like, is this going to be a good venture?
Why are they charging so much for this little product on Stream 2? Sometimes people will come across what we do and they'll think it's a podcast. Now, not that podcasting is a bad thing. Podcasting is a great thing. And many times people can make very, very professional podcasts. But the difference in a podcast and the type of product we produce is tremendous.
Yes. Podcasts are usually episodic episodes. And, one episode follows the next episode. Hopefully it's in a kind of timeline thing. And it's done over, weeks, maybe days, maybe. It just depends. But it's not a put together product such as the Stream 2 tutorial, the Braille No Touch tutorial, the Dolphin Guide Connect tutorial, all these things that we've done over the years.
And we've done a lot over the years if you look back at our catalog. And many of you have a lot of our catalog, and we appreciate that. But we've done a lot of things in a lot of different realms. Take ECHO for a really good example of that. We took a mainstream product and we created documentation on it for this community. And we're very proud of that. It was our very best-selling product ever. I think for that reason. We took a product that was mainstream and we showed this community how to use it. And it turned out to be a super powerful product for this community specifically.
And that's gone through several iterations over the years, including our newest version, which is a collaboration and was revamped and revised. But we were generously offered the ability to still have that available to our own group of people for purchase if they wanted it. So we definitely recommend checking out the latest version. If you have downloaded previous versions and bought those in the past, you will have access to it. So if you haven't downloaded the 2024 version, we definitely recommend it.
So I think that type of thing is powerful. We're also, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, probably the first company that ever tried to do a Braille display tutorial for a non-speaking Braille display. I think we were the first.
Yeah, it's probably true.
Because he didn't think it could be done.
I said, how can you do a tutorial on a Braille display?
We did.
That was the Vario Ultra.
Yeah, Vario Ultra, back in the day.
Yep, it worked out.
It did. That was a collaboration between Lisa and myself, and turned out to be very, very good. I did the editing for it, and she did the actual classes for it. It was based on a class that we taught. A lot of our stuff's been based on classes that we've taught. And the reason we do that is because we get really good feedback from class participants, and that's very helpful for us.
Some of you might want to know before we close, what equipment do we use?
That's changed a lot over the years.
It has.
But the main kind of things that you need are
A very good microphone.
a very good microphone, the best that you can get at the time. These we love because they're literally on necklaces around our necks. We got them off Amazon. They sound pretty darn great, if we do say so. And they're very portable. We can literally throw them in a bag and take them traveling with us, and have on many, many occasions.
Now, what do you use for editing?
I use Gold Wave personally.
And I use Studio Recorder for 90% of, like, when you're editing a podcast or editing stuff. I personally like Studio Recorder. I've used it for years.
They're both great programs.
They are.
That's probably the reason I use Gold Wave, because I used Gold Wave long before I knew you.
Right.
So it's just what you get used to. But they
Now,
both do the job.
One thing that I don't use Studio Recorder for is creating chapters
Correct.
in the podcasts. So for that overkill, I use Reaper to do that. I do know how to do that in Reaper, but I'm not a very good editor in Reaper. So it really just depends on how comfortable you are and what you are going to use.
If you were going to create a professional level product, though, it must be edited.
Yes.
And speaking of that, the other thing we do to make our products, as I referenced earlier, as professional level as we can, especially for this community, is that we daisy most of them.
Yes.
And we do that with Dolphin Publisher.
Right. So we try to make it as navigable as possible. In the beginning, because we're still focusing on the Stream 2 tutorial, in the beginning, I navved it to within an inch of its life.
He made it a textbook.
I will not do that again.
Explain why.
It's too hard. Some of those sections, when you're making a nav point, the MP3 might be 30 seconds. And then you're going on to the next MP3. Now, if you're listening to the tutorial in an MP3 player that doesn't go from one file to the next, you now have to advance yourself to the next file, which may be another 20 seconds or 30 seconds or 2 minutes or something like that. While the navigation was good, it's too much and not necessary.
And sometimes the listener would get really overwhelmed by it. Like, why? What? Why? Why is it so much?
Right.
So we decided relatively quickly into our recordings that was a bit of overkill. Now, with something like the Touch, which came not too much later, we still did a lot of navigation for things like orientation. That's important.
We did a lot of that in the Touch tutorial too. The Stream 2 tutorial I was looking at the other day because I had to, like I said in the beginning, remove the old outdated Audible section and put in the new Audible section. And when I looked at the total of navigation points in that tutorial, there were 317 nav points in that tutorial. It's a bit much.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot that goes into these productions. And we kind of have it down to a science, but that takes time. And when we did Stream 2, I kind of marvel that Stream 2 was kind of our flagship that started it all, just because we had so many issues during that production. Between me not knowing how to mix it, and that's an understatement, to Chris having to say, you need to explain this differently, or explain it better, or more clearly, or something. Because he understood more about what was needed than I did in that original documentation.
There was this one file that we sent to one of our beta testers. Well, we sent it to the whole beta testers.
Okay, this is a funny story. This has nothing to do with me explaining things more clearly, though.
No, it doesn't. But when I was editing your file, it ended. Or at least that's where I thought it ended. And I said, okay, post, done, send. It turned out that you had some pretty colorful words to say that were in the recording after what I thought was done. So it was my fault for not letting the file completely play out. But it was just kind of funny how it was brought to our attention by one of our beta testers. And she was like, you probably don't want this in here.
And she was correct. We don't want an R rating on our documentation.
No.
There are funny things that happen Those of you who were part of those early days, probably had no idea the things that would go on behind the scenes. Even now, recording behind the scenes can be very colorful. You may have heard people talk about what happens when you're close to a recording deadline or a writing deadline. This happens with writing too. Everything that could go wrong usually does.
Yes.
So you have to prepare for that in advance. And I don't know why this happens, but it does. It's just like what you hear about demo syndrome. If you are demoing something for a group, anything that can go wrong will. So you really have to think on your feet. And we've had so many instances of that, even trying to be as careful as we do.
When I used to work at the center in Buffalo years and years and years ago, one of a representative for assistive technology, we won't mention the company's name, although they're long defunct, comes in, wants to show us a new product. We had a computer with software that was running on it called Stacker that somehow made your 40 meg hard drive, and I said meg, into an 80 meg, or it somehow doubled the space of your drive. So he comes in, he installs his program, it kills the computer. Whoops. Like you said, when something can go wrong, it will. And luckily, there was nothing of any real value on that computer because they had to reformat the computer and reinstall everything from scratch. So, but it's just funny that when you go in and do a demo on something, I mean, people don't really do that now. They bring their own equipment to probably make it so that things like that don't happen, but they would bring their own, like, computers and stuff so that things are now working as hopefully they would expect, but sometimes it does go wrong too.
Oh yes, we've been on that end of things too, where you've had your own equipment and bad stuff happens to your equipment when you are trying to demo it in front of people.
Yep.
That's not fun. The other thing that we did with the Stream 2 documentation that we never do anymore is we attempted to write it first, transcribe it, make a script.
Yes.
And yeah, that really didn't work. We did the scripted portion for everything through the orientation, and the rest of it, I said, this isn't going to work. And I stopped trying to script it.
Sometimes people want the scripts. Mm-hmm. It's like, at least for what we do, there's no scripts.
Because I edit it out in such a way where it still sounds relatively good, hopefully, without the need for having a script.
And it doesn't sound like you're reading.
No. And I think that can catch you off. You don't want to sound like you're reading. You want to sound like you're engaged with your audience, I feel. One time, I think this was for Stream 2. It was for Stream 2 or for Touch. I was recording based on a script, and something was wrong with my mic, and there was a hum underneath the entire file, which took me hours to record and edit, and then realized there's a hum under here. And there was no getting it out during the edit.
Right.
Had to re-record the whole thing.
Yep.
That kind of stuff happens all the time. So when you're doing these things and you're making them ready for your public to check them out, you have to know that you're going to have some pretty long days in terms of the preparation. Sometimes it isn't the recording that's the issue. It's everything else.
When I was creating the Sendero Maps tutorial,
that was one of the pre-stream tutorials.
It was. And I remember recording something 3 times because either it didn't start or the wires weren't connected or something like that. When you go back to it and there's nothing there, it's like, oh, I just wasted all of that time. However, most times, if you have to re-record something, the second or third time is much better than the first.
That is almost always a true maxim. There are exceptions, but they're very few. But yes, almost always that's the case. So that's just a little peek behind the scenes as to how we started and a few little experiences along the way, along the Mystic Access journey. And of course, goes without saying that Chris and I have become even closer as the Mystic Access journey has progressed. And that's how we like Mystic. We like Mystic as a team effort. And I think that's what makes us good at what we do, because we play so well off each other. And it makes Mystic perhaps a little different than some of the other companies you'll come across in the community, because we like to record together.
Right. All right. Well, we shall see you before April 15th. But
Yes.
not too much.
Not too much. So if you're one of those people still procrastinating, time to stop.
Tax day is coming soon.
Sooner than you want.
Right.
See you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.
The preceding podcast is a presentation of Mystic Access, where the magic is in learning. If you are blind or visually impaired and wish to experience less stress and more fun on your unique assistive technology journey, our comprehensive audio documentation and additional offerings are here to support you. We welcome your visit at mysticaccess.com. That's mysticaccess.com. Have a question or wish to place an order via phone? Call us at 716-543-3323. If you have comments to share about this episode, follow our phone menu prompts to reach our Mystic Access podcast comment line. Email us at info@mysticaccess.com and connect with us on social media, Mastodon, mysticaccess.online, and facebook.com/mysticaccessempower. Would you like to spread the word about our podcasts? Anyone may explore our extensive archives and subscribe to receive our bi-weekly episodes at mysticaccesspodcast.com. If you enjoy our content, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for spreading the word and for being a listener. We hope you enjoyed this episode.